That's what occurs when a country experiences 289% inflation. The day when your monthly paycheck is cheaper than a single iPhone? What happens when even plain food is more costly than Paris? You get Argentina in 2024, and it's even more of a nightmare than anyone is telling you. Argentina has just lived through among the worst economic collapses in recent history. That's the highest level in 2 decades for a country where 57.4% now live in poverty, where your rent can literally double overnight, where families are making choices between food and medicine. But here's the truly shocking thing. This is not some war-ravaged nation or failed state. This is Argentina, a country that, in addition to some of the best beef, wine, and natural resources on the planet, has also perfected filth. A nation that was wealthier than France and Italy. So how was it that things went so disastrously wrong? The numbers don't lie here is a back-of-the-envelope sketch using actual 2024 numbers. A basic food basket for a family of 4 costs 828,150 Argentine pesos per month. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, the minimum wage is just 202,800 pesos. That would be 4 times the minimum wage to buy just basic food. Prices in essential goods such as fruit, vegetables, bread, and meat rose by between 100% to 360% in the first 7 months of 2024 alone. Picture going into a grocery store and everything is 3 times more expensive than it was 6 months ago. That is the stark choice millions of Argentines confront every day. But wait, it gets worse. More than 15% of the population lives in what the government refers to as destitution. They're people who cannot get food, plain and simple. We are speaking here of almost 7 million people in a population of 45 million who are starving. The housing nightmare. Now let's turn to housing because this is where it really gets ugly. Rents went through the roof following open property market reforms in 2023. The price of a single-bedroom apartment in the center of Buenos Aires jumped to 588,000 pesos, $550 per month. Which might sound like a bargain to you, but consider that the median monthly salary in Argentina is just north of $200. Here's the brutal math. You lose a lot of lifestyle spending to take-home pay, cut out another chunk for rent that is nearly 3 times what the average income earner makes in a month. And that does not include utilities, which can cost another $120 a month. So now housing takes 4 times what most people make. The math simply doesn't add up for most ordinary Argentines to be able to afford decent housing. But here's the truly heartbreaking factor. 42.9% of people in poverty live in overcrowded conditions, and 18.1% live in accommodation that is unhealthy. The country has more than 6,400 at-risk neighborhoods where people live in precarious dwellings with unreliable access to water, electricity, and sanitation. In Buenos Aires, just under 9,500 people are entirely homeless. The healthcare crisis. Healthcare is an even darker tale. In theory, Argentina has universal healthcare, but the practice is grim. Current government has slashed healthcare programs by 70% and up to 100% since the start of this 2024. Services for cancer patients, victims of gender-based violence, and people with disabilities have been cut or stopped altogether. Certainly, public healthcare is free, but what good is free when hospitals don't have the most basic of supplies? Waiting times are measured in months, and medical facilities themselves are falling apart by the day. Tens of thousands of Argentines now find themselves caught in an impossible dilemma. Pay for private healthcare that they cannot afford, or risk their lives to rely on an underfunded public system. The cost of private health insurance is very diverse, but for those paid under $200 a month, there's no consideration of private healthcare that could at all resemble the level of public care. At the same time, staple medicines are also showing the identical 100 to 300% increase in price as food. Daily survival strategies. So what are people actually living on? Here is where the lights go out. As a nation, Argentines have built an entire economy off the instability of their currency. Almost all locals will not accept your own currency when making large purchases. They sell dollars on the black market, which has created a parallel economy where the official exchange rate is irrelevant. Here's how crazy it has gotten. Tourists are told to take unmarked $100 bills, buy them on the black market at underground cuevas or souvenir stalls, and get a semi-decent rate of exchange. In the ATMs, money can only be taken out in sums of around $15 and is charged with approximately $10 both. You hemorrhage cash to even access your own money. Food shopping requires military-level planning. Households monitor prices on a daily basis, load up when they see bargains, and even make wholesale changes to their diets based on where the best deals can be found. Meat, the national pride of Argentina, is now a luxury item for most families. People are swapping rice and pasta for protein if they can afford the basics at all. The crime reality, poverty, and despair lead inexorably to crime, and Argentina is no exception. As the government attempts to minimize it, crime has spiked in significant cities. Pickpocketing, bag snatching, and phone theft are a constant nuisance in Buenos Aires. The smash-and-grab mustard scam, in which you're smothered with mustard while an associate robs you, and its ilk are so popular that they're almost a tourist attraction. But it's not only petty crime. Quick kidnappings as well, in which victims are temporarily held and made to withdraw money from their bank account. Robberies at gunpoint are real dangers, particularly in parts of La Boca, Constitution, or in some stretches of San Telmo after dark. Rosario has grown so violent that it now is known here and abroad as Argentina's murder capital, with a quadruple homicide rate compared with the national average. Drug gangs move freely, and even the most elemental services like bus or taxi transport are disrupted by threats of violence. Here's what actually helps capture the sense of it: that locals walk with our backpacks in front, that we never talk on phones in the street, and that we avoid entire neighborhoods where once we would have made safe passage. So when your own country's citizens spend their days just trying to survive, you know something is essentially broken. The middle-class vanishing act. As an onlooker in Argentina's crisis, one of the most tragic scenes to behold is that of the middle class being dismantled in real time. Households who were feeling secure about their comfortable middle-class status just 2 years ago now find it difficult to make ends meet. Salaries which were once the wages of prosperity have now become rent checks. A teacher, an engineer, or a nurse, educated workers who are the bedrock on which any society should be built, can't afford to live in the city where her or his services are most needed. Many are leaving the country altogether, in a brain drain that only makes recovery more difficult. Retirement has become a bad joke. The government reduced pension programs as part of austerity policies, and the elderly people who had spent a lifetime working were left with little or no support. Retirees have marched in the streets to demonstrate their desire for food, yet they have encountered police crackdowns and government scorn. For young people, the picture is even more stark. An entire generation is being left behind. Youth unemployment is soaring and education funding has been cut. A lot are preparing to emigrate as soon as they can, perceiving their future in their home country to be bleak. The social fabric unraveling. What does a society look like when survival itself is an open question? You can see it now going on in Argentina. All the social programs for at-risk people have been removed. Programs that support domestic violence shelters have had their funding cut off. Services for victims of gender-based violence have been slashed by as much as 100%. The education system is crumbling. Public university budgets have been gutted, and higher education made more inaccessible at the exact time people need it most. School feeding programs that provided meals to hungry children have been cut or eliminated. Even cultural institutions are suffering. Museums, libraries, and community centers, which were continuing to keep the rich tradition of Argentina, are closing because they don't have resources. Economic necessity is tearing the heart right out of this country. The political response. The newly elected president, Javier Milei, won in 2023, offering drastic remedies to Argentina's ills. His chainsaw approach to government spending saw some results. Inflation fell from 211% in mid-2024 to about 117% by the year's end. The government recorded its first budget surplus in more than a decade, but these successes were achieved at a terrible human price. The austerity policies that balanced the budget plunged millions more Argentines into poverty. Public sector jobs were shed, social services slashed, and the most vulnerable left to fend for themselves. The tragic irony is that despite improvement on the economic front, life for most Argentines has become worse by orders of magnitude. It's as if one called a patient cured because their fever went away, with the starving to death bit somehow not getting noticed. The global context. Argentina's crisis isn't occurring in a vacuum. It's a cautionary note for what can transpire when economic mismanagement intersects with global instability. The country's been caught in a rhythm of crisis after crisis for decades now, each recovery topped off by an even deeper collapse. What makes this newly relevant is Argentina used to be a developed country with its own natural resources, an educated population, and sound institutions. The rapidity and severity of the implosion should be a wake-up call to other national governments that are struggling under similar pressures. International observers are looking on with interest because Argentina is a laboratory for extreme austerity policies. The question is not merely whether these policies will work economically, but whether the social fabric can hold during the transition. To live in Argentina today is to be mired in an endless lack of certainty, wherein the basics of life have become a daily calculus that ideally should never occur under any adequate social model worth its salt. It means seeing your life's savings disappear, your neighborhood turn unsafe, and your future become more uncertain. The reality of day-to-day life in Argentina isn't just one of economic aggravation or challenge. It's an entire society that is being forced to pick between immediate survival and long-term hope. And for millions of people, that choice is being made on their behalf.